Hello guys and welcome back to Reading Club. So today I'm going to read you Daisy and the Trouble with Giants, chapter 16 to the last chapter. Chapter 16. Can I help? Can I help? I said. Can I help you pick some runner beans? And guess what? Grampy said I could. He took a bowl out of the kitchen cupboard and said to me, "Come on then, Daisy, fresh runner beans are delicious. You pick some from the bottom and I'll pick some from the top." Then I followed him out of the kitchen and into the garden. The trouble with my Grampy's garden is it can make you get quite excited, especially as it's got beans in it. It's much bigger than my garden and has a bird bath and a vegetable garden and even a greenhouse. My Grampy's vegetables were over by the fence near the greenhouse. Sometimes you could see where the actual vegetables were growing, like if they were tomatoes, because tomatoes grow above the ground. And sometimes you couldn't see where the actual vegetables were growing, like potatoes and carrots, because potatoes and carrots grow under the ground. "Welcome to my vegetable garden, Daisy," said Grampy, showing me where it was. "These are my tomatoes and these are my spring onions. These are my new potatoes. Those are my carrots. These are my lettuce. These are my lettuces and these are my runner beans. Nanny and I grow all our own vegetables," said Grampy. The tomatoes are green at the moment because they aren't ripe yet, but they'll be a lovely red color in a month or so. Grampy was really pleased with his vegetables. He said vegetables are fresher and tastier if you grow them in your own garden. Much fresher and tastier than if you buy them in a shop. Then I asked Grampy if he would show me the runner beans, and guess what? The runner beans weren't growing in nice straight rows at all. They were growing up towards the sky on sticks. Grampy called them bamboo sticks. He had pushed them into the ground just like an Indian teepee. Grampy said runner beans grow up and that the bamboo sticks gave them something to hold on to. I told Grampy that I knew a lot about beans because I had listened to Jack and the Beanstalk at school. I told them Gabby and me had spent the whole day yesterday playing giants and that we had spent ages and ages looking for a magic bean of our own. That we couldn't find any beans anywhere, apart from baked beans at lunchtime, but they were covered in tomato sauce. "Well, you'd better get picking, Daisy," said Grampy. "We'll need at least 20 nice big runner beans for our Sunday lunch." So I did. I picked my first ever actual runner bean with my own fingers. Grampy showed me how to do it first. He showed me how to lift up the leaves and look for the long green dangly things that were hidden underneath. Then he pulled one off the stalk, slid his fingernail down the join at the side of the long green case, and pulled it open with the rest of his fingers. You should have seen what was inside. It wasn't just one runner bean, it was 5. 5 lovely, shiny, pink runner beans with little black and brown dots and splodges on them. Each bean was all snuggly, pludgy inside its own smooth little dip, but if you pushed it with your thumb, it came out. Grampy pushed a shiny pink bean out with his thumb and then gave it to me to hold. "Is it magic?" I said. "I doubt it," he said. So then I had a really good close-up look. It felt magic. And it was definitely shiny, but it wasn't exactly sparkly. In fact, it wasn't sparkly at all. So it can't have been magic. Then I looked at all the other beans that were inside the case. None of them were magic either. "Can we pick some more?" I asked. "Pick away," laughed Grampy. "We need 19 more big ones for lunch." So this time I got to pick my very own. Grampy reached up to the very top of the bamboo sticks, and I reached about up to the middle. That's the trouble with being about 7 years old. It doesn't make you about 7 feet tall. I couldn't wait to open up my own beans. The first one I opened had 5 shiny beans in, and the second one I opened had 6. But none of them were sparkly, which meant that none of them were magic either. It was still really good though, because I'd never opened beans before. Only then Grampy went and spoiled it. He asked me not to open anymore. Grampy said you're not meant to open runner beans if you're having them for Sunday lunch. You're supposed to have them inside their green cases. The trouble with not opening runner beans is you can't tell if there are any magic beans inside. But Grampy still said, just pick them please, Daisy. Don't open them please, Daisy. So I had to just pick them and not open them, not even one, which was totally Grampy's fault. After about 10 minutes, we had 21 lovely long runner beans in our bowl. I really wanted to open them all, but Grampy said we must take them indoors and give them all to Nanny. So we did, because he made me. Chapter 17. I didn't want to give the runner beans to Nanny, especially the ones I'd picked. I wanted to keep them for myself. I didn't mind giving them to her once I'd opened them, because then I could have checked to see if there were any magic beans inside. But Grampy made me give Nanny all the beans, every one. Nanny said we had done really well, and that as soon as she had whisked up her new Yorkshire pudding mix, she would top, tail, and slice them ready for lunch. Then Grampy and Mom started talking. Then Nanny started whisking. So I went back outside into the garden. The trouble with going into a garden after you've been picking beans is it really makes you want to pick some more. I mean, we had only picked about 20 in the first place, and there were still loads more dangling from the leaves. There were long ones, short ones, thin ones, fat ones, big ones, little ones. Any one of them could have had a magic bean inside. So I went back to the bamboo sticks and picked all the long ones I could reach. I must have picked about 50 long ones before I had to start picking all the medium-sized ones. Each time I pulled a runner bean from its stalk, I opened their green case and looked for a magic bean sparkling inside. Trouble is, every bean I looked at just looked the same, apart from the medium beans. They were just smaller. So I had to pick all of Grampy's small beans too. But they didn't have any sparkly beans in either. And some of them didn't even shine. The really titchy ones didn't have any beans in it at all, which only left the beans I couldn't reach. So I went and got Grampy's wheelbarrow. The trouble with standing in Grampy's wheelbarrow is it does make you able to reach higher, but if you lean over too far, it makes the wheelbarrow tip over into the beans. I was doing really well too. I only had one more bean to reach, but it was right under some leaves and really hard to get to, so I really had to stretch. And then the wheelbarrow fell over into the beans, with me in it. The trouble with falling into beans is all the bamboo sticks fall over when you land on them and everything crashes to the ground. At first, I thought I was going to break something like my arm or my leg, but I didn't. The only thing I broke were Grampy's sticks and some of his stalks. Actually, quite a lot of the stalks. But I was alright, and the wheelbarrow was alright too. When I had got up out of the beans, I looked across the garden towards the kitchen. The kitchen door was open, and I could see Mom and Grampy still talking, but no one came out. So they obviously didn't mind. So then I had a brilliant idea. If there wasn't a magic bean in Grampy's garden, maybe there was a magic tomato. After all, if you can climb up to the clouds on a magic beanstalk, I'm sure you can do it on a magic tomato stalk. So I picked all Grampy's tomatoes too. I didn't mean to. They just sort of kept coming off in my hand. But they didn't sparkle either. They just stayed green and not that shiny. And they made my fingers smell. So I needed to pick something else instead to get the smell off. The trouble with magic carrots is the green bits at the top of them could sparkle. But they don't. You have to pull the whole carrot out of the ground to see if the orange bit is sparkling underneath. Even when you've pulled them out of the ground, you still can't tell straight away if they're magic or not, because the earth on them has to be rubbed off too. I rubbed the earth off every one of Grampy's carrots, but I still couldn't find one that even slightly sparkled. So I had to try the spring onions instead. The trouble with spring onions is you think there's going to be much more of them under the ground, and when you pull, but there isn't. I pulled up every single spring onion, but there was hardly any onion growing underneath, and none of them looked magic at all. They were only little white fruits, which isn't my fault. So that only left the new potatoes and the lettuces. The new potatoes were my favorite. When you pull them up, all the earth comes up, and then it all sprinkles away to show you the potatoes underneath. Sometimes you get loads. They're quite small and creamy whitey colored, and when you pull them, they come off their roots just like that. If only they sparkled too, but they didn't. Not one single one of all Grampy's new potatoes was the slightest bit magic at all. And as for his lettuces, well, they're just useless. That's the trouble with Grampy's vegetable garden. None of the vegetables are grown from magic seeds. At least none of the vegetables I had looked at so far. I was almost going to give up looking when I suddenly had another good idea. Well, it seemed like a good idea at the time. I could look for magic vegetables in Grampy's greenhouse, so I did. Chapter 18. The trouble with the greenhouses is they get really hot inside. When I pulled back the glass door on Grampy's greenhouse, loads of hot heat came out all over me. All the sunshine in the sky had made it hot enough inside to cook Yorkshire puddings in. And the smell was really funny too. It smelled of moldy flower pots. Once I had let all the heat out, the smell started to go away. Then I started to get used to it. So I started looking for magic vegetables again. There were lots of things growing in Grampy's greenhouse. They were all in trays with brown earth inside them, but I couldn't tell if they were vegetables or not, because they were so small. Which wasn't my fault. Some had little things like cucumbers on them, plus big green leaves with yellow flowers. Some trays had loads and loads and loads of teensy green leaves on teensy weensy white stalks. Those were the ones I pulled up first. You should have seen how easy they were to pull up. I could do 10 at once really easy. They just came right out in my hands, but none of them had sparkly roots below. The little cucumbers didn't sparkle when I pulled them off either. Neither did the roots in the black trays, the red trays, or even the flower pots when I tipped them upside down. It was hopeless. There wasn't a magic vegetable anywhere. Nothing in Grampy's greenhouse sparkled at all. I had completely run out of ideas in vegetables, until I looked through the glass and saw the blackcurrants. Chapter 19. The trouble with blackcurrants is if you squeeze them too hard, they pop, especially very ripe blackcurrants. At first, I didn't know what a magic blackcurrant would be like, but then I worked it out. A magic blackcurrant was bound to have special powers, so if you squashed it, it wouldn't pop. So that's what I had to do, squash all Grampy's blackcurrants. The trouble with squashing Grampy's blackcurrants is if they pop too much, they pop all over you, like on your clothes. If your clothes are your best clothes, then you don't really want blackcurrant juice on them at all. Trouble is, I never noticed it was happening. I was too busy looking for the magic blackcurrant with special powers to notice, which isn't my fault. The person I noticed first of all was my mom. "Daisy!" she said, screamed more than said. "What on earth do you think you're doing?" So I said, "Looking for magic vegetables." Then my Grampy came out to see what Mom was shouting about. You should have seen his face when he saw what I'd done. "My beans," he said. "My tomatoes," he said. "My carrots," he said. "My potatoes," he said. My lettuces, he said. My spring onions, he said. Then he went into the greenhouse. My courgettes, he said. My marrows, he said. My seedlings, he said. Then he came out of the greenhouse. My black currants, he said. Your best blouse, my mom said. Well, not said, but sort of shouted again. Then I looked down at my best blouse and saw the black currant juice that had popped all over it. And then I went all sort of hot, and my fingers went all stiff, and my eyes went all watery. Then my nanny came out to see what everyone was shouting about. My word, she said. Daisy, what have you done? The trouble with trying to explain about magic vegetables when your fingers are stiff and your ears are watery is, well, you can't think of what to say. So I didn't say anything. At first, my mom did. My mom didn't stop saying things for ages. She said I was a naughty, naughty, naughty girl, and that if I didn't say sorry to Grampy straight away, she would never bring me to Nanny and Grampy's for Sunday lunch again. Then my eyes went even waterier, and my tongue went all dry inside my mouth. The first time I said sorry, no one heard me because my words were so quiet. Then I said sorry again, a giant sorry, and then I started to cry. The trouble with crying is sometimes it's really hard to stop. My mom didn't care. She was far too cross to worry about my shoulders going up and down. She told me I had to help Grampy replant all the vegetables I had pulled up. But Grampy said the sunshine would have dried the roots so they wouldn't go back into the ground. Then she said I would have to buy Grampy some more seeds out of my own pocket money and help him plant every single one. But Grampy said it was too late in the season to plant more seeds. He asked me why I had pulled up all his vegetables, and I told him that I needed a magic bean. But a magic tomato would have worked, but there weren't any magic beans or tomatoes in his garden, however hard I looked or however hard I wished. So then all the other vegetables had made me get carried away, and so it really, really wasn't my fault. Then he told me that if I was going to keep on crying, would I mind standing in the middle of the lawn, because if I stooped in the middle of the lawn, I made a lovely job of watering the grass. Which made me laugh a bit and smile a bit, but I still felt ever so terrible, because Grampy's vegetables looked ever so messy, and it was my fault, really. Nanny said she had to go back indoors, because if she burned the Yorkshires again, that would be 3 disasters in one day. Grampy said he'd plant some winter vegetables when he tidied up, and that maybe I'd like to help him when he bought the seeds. I didn't really want to help him because I'd gone right off the vegetables forever, but I dried my eyes and promised I would. Mom gave me a tissue and told me to blow my nose. Then she banned me from playing giants forever, including looking for magic beans, looking for magic vegetables, looking for magic fruit, or looking for magic anything. Then we went in for our lunch. It was a very quiet Sunday lunch. No one hardly said anything. We just chewed. And then we tidied away. And then Mom and me went home. Chapter 20. When we got indoors, I went straight up to my room. Promise me you won't play giants again, Daisy, said Mom. So I promised. I mean it, Daisy, said my mom. If I hear so much as a fee, a fi, a fo, or a fum out of you, you are going to be in giant trouble. So I double promised, closed my bedroom door, sat on my bed, uncrossed my fingers. Accidentally knocked my pillows onto the floor, turned them into clouds, picked up my 100-meter blue barrel, and wrote a secret letter to Jack Beachersel. A secret letter to Jack Beachersel, castle in the sky above the clouds. Dear Jack, no one must know I'm writing this letter because my mom will go mad if she finds out. I'm writing to you to tell you some bad news. My mom says I'm banned from being a giant anymore, which means so is Wendy the Whooping, because being giants in the first place was my idea, so she's not allowed to play it without me. I'm a bit sad because being giants was really good fun. especially the bit when I picked you up out of the sweet shop and threw you into the dungeon of our castle in the sky. I reckon my mom will let me be a giant again one day when she has calmed down a bit. But it may be quite a long time. Giant dungeon keys are very massive, which means they can only be picked up by giants. So I won't be able to let you out again until I'm a giant again, which is even more bad news because you'll have to stay in the dungeon for about 100 years now. Sorry, but actually it serves you right for being horrible to Danielle. Love, Hannah the Highest, Daisy X. P.S. There are eggs in the fridge. That's the end of this book. I hope you enjoyed my reading of it, and I'll come back later with a new and improved channel. Bye, everybody. I'll see you with a new book.